When driving a tanker, what is the greatest danger related to the vehicle's high center of gravity? Tipping over in a turn or curve. The high center of gravity makes tankers extremely susceptible to rollovers when cornering too quickly. On to the next one. What are baffles used for inside a tank vehicle? To control the movement surge of liquid when the tank is only partially full. Baffles break up the wave action of the liquid, stabilizing the vehicle and reducing the effects of liquid surge. What's after this? Why must all manholes and outage openings on a tank vehicle be completely closed before driving? To prevent the liquid cargo from splashing out, which affects stability and can be dangerous. Even small leaks can cause a loss of stability, damage the road, or create a hazard for other vehicles. Moving on, when driving a tank vehicle, which is the most crucial step before entering a curve, slow down to a safe speed before the curve. Because of the high center of gravity and potential for surge, the proper speed must be established before the curve. So what's next? What is the primary concern when carrying a full tank of liquid in an unbaffled tanker? The weight is carried high, but there is less surge than a partially full tank. A full tank is stable because the liquid cannot move much, but the high center of gravity still makes rollovers a major risk. Next on our list. What is the maximum distance a passenger bus driver can travel without a break after 8 hours of continuous driving? General Safety Guideline, 150 miles. This guideline emphasizes that the driver should not travel more than 150 miles after 8 continuous hours of driving without taking a required rest break. Okay, what's after this? What is the significance of the standee line on a bus? Passengers are not allowed to stand forward of this line when the bus is moving. This line prevents passengers from blocking the driver's view or interfering with the door mechanism. Let's move on. What is the proper procedure for checking the air pressure in your tires when operating a bus? The tires must be checked before every trip. Bus tires are critical for safety due to the number of people on board and require a pre-trip check. What about this next one? You should always carry a spare electric fuse or circuit breaker for what system on a bus? The emergency exit signaling device. A working emergency signal is vital for passenger safety during an emergency. On to the next question. When transporting luggage on a bus, where must it be placed? Secured so it doesn't block the aisle or emergency exits. A clear path to all exits is mandatory for quick passenger evacuation. Moving forward. What is required if a bus is equipped with a wheelchair lift? The driver must inspect the lift daily for proper operation. Lifts must be fully operational and safe for passengers before each use. Let's consider the next one. What is the danger of letting passengers board or exit while the bus is parked on a slope? Passengers can be injured if the bus starts to roll or they lose their balance. Always pull into a level spot to board or deboard passengers safely. And the next point, how far away must you not smoke or allow others to smoke when transporting Class 1 explosives materials? 25 feet. Safe distance from explosives is required to prevent accidental ignition. What's next? What does the hazmat loading and segregation table primarily tell you? Which types of hazardous materials cannot be loaded or transported together? The table ensures that incompatible materials are kept separate to prevent dangerous reactions. Moving on to this. If a shipment of hazardous material is forbidden, it means it cannot be transported in a commercial vehicle. Forbidden materials pose too great a risk and are banned from CMV transport. All right, let's see. The 4-digit hazmat identification number must appear on the shipping papers and the container package. This number is used to quickly identify the material in an emergency. What's after this? What is the primary goal of following a designated hazmat route? To avoid heavily populated areas, tunnels, and certain bridges. Designated routes minimize public risk in case of an accident involving hazardous materials. Next question. When transporting hazardous materials, you should avoid driving near open fires or sources of heat. Heat and fire can cause certain hazardous materials to ignite or explode. Let's get to this one. Which fire extinguisher is required in the cab of a vehicle placarded for hazardous materials? One with a minimum rating of 10B/C. A larger extinguisher is required to deal with potential fires involving flammable liquids or electrical systems. Okay, what's next? You must stop and check the vehicle's tires every time you stop when transporting which class of hazardous material? Class 3, flammable liquids. Tire checks are critical, as an overheated tire can cause a fire that ignites the flammable cargo. Moving on. What does the abbreviation RQ on a shipping paper stand for? Reportable quantity. This marks a quantity of hazardous material that, if spilled, requires immediate reporting to the National Response Center. So what's next? If you are transporting Division 1.1, 1.2, or 1.3 explosives, you may not park within 300 feet of a bridge, tunnel, or dwelling, unless necessary for the job. This regulation minimizes the damage and casualties that would result from an explosion. Next on our list, when pulling doubles or triples, what is the recommended method for inspecting a manual slack adjuster? Pulling firmly on the push rod. You check the free play should be no more than 1 inch by pulling on the push rod to ensure proper brake adjustment. Okay, what's after this? When checking the coupling for a doubles combination, the fifth wheel skid plate should be greased and resting flat on the tractor frame. Greasing reduces friction, and resting flat ensures the skid plate is properly mated to the fifth wheel. Let's move on. The drawbar coupling device on a full trailer must be strong enough to pull the maximum weight of the trailer and its contents. The device must be capable of handling the heaviest weight it will ever be subjected to. What about this next one? What is the correct way to test the emergency brakes on a double or triple trailer combination? Apply the hand valve trailer brake and check for holding power. The hand valve allows you to apply the trailer service brakes independently to test their function. On to the next question. If a dolly is used to convert a semi-trailer to a full trailer, what is the most important check for the pintle hook ring? That there is no damage or cracking to the ring or the hook itself. Any damage to this critical connection point could result in the trailer breaking away, moving forward. When uncoupling the converter dolly from the first trailer, you should block the wheels of the dolly before releasing the air brakes. Blocking the dolly prevents it from rolling away when the air brakes are released and before the dolly is fully detached. Let's consider the next one. What is the purpose of the air compressor in an air brake system? To pump air into the storage tanks. The air compressor generates and maintains the air pressure required for the entire brake system. And the next point, how do you check for a malfunctioning low air pressure warning signal during a pre-trip inspection? Turn the key on, engine off, and check if the low air warning light comes on. The warning light should activate below 60 psi and is tested by reducing the air pressure. What's next? What happens if the automatic slack adjusters are not working correctly? Brake adjustment will not be maintained, leading to excessive brake lag and poor braking. Brakes that are out of adjustment require more air to apply, which increases lag and stopping distance. Moving on to this. The time it takes for air to flow through the lines and the brakes to begin to work is called brake lag. This short delay adds to the vehicle's total stopping distance. All right, let's see. The air governor controls when the air compressor starts and stops pumping air. It maintains system pressure between the cut-in start and cut-out stop thresholds. What's after this? What should you use to check the adjustment of manual slack adjusters? A common wrench by pulling on the push rod. The wrench is used to adjust the slack. The push rod is pulled to test the adjustment. Next question. What is the most common type of drain valve found on air tanks? Petcock or cable-operated valve. These valves are used to easily drain moisture and oil from the air tanks. Let's get to this one. What is the procedure for an emergency stop if the air brake system completely fails? Apply the parking emergency brakes and find a safe runoff area. The spring brakes are the last resort when the service air pressure is completely lost. Okay, what's next? In Texas, what is the maximum vehicle length for a single truck tractor, semi-trailer, and trailer combination? Doubles. The combination is generally limited to 65 feet. Texas has specific rules limiting the length of double trailer combinations. Moving on, what is the general daytime speed limit for CMVs on a rural interstate highway in Texas? 70 miles per hour, where posted. Speed limits are often posted, but 70 miles per hour is a common maximum for CMVs on rural interstates. So what's next? Under Texas law, all CMV drivers are prohibited from using a cell phone to write, send, or read a text message. Texas law bans texting while driving for all drivers, including CMV operators. Next on our list. In Texas, a CMV driver must have the registration or title for the vehicle in their possession when operating. At all times, proof of ownership registration must be readily available to law enforcement. Okay, what's after this? Under Texas law, if a CMV is unattended on a public roadway, what must the driver do? Secure the vehicle by setting the parking brake and chocking the wheels. This prevents the vehicle from rolling, which is especially important on inclines. Let's move on. In Texas, most CMVs are restricted to the right-hand lane on multi-lane highways unless passing another vehicle, preparing to exit, or if the lane is closed. CMVs are often required to stay in the rightmost lanes to facilitate traffic flow. What about this next one? What is the maximum allowed height of a vehicle in Texas, including the load? 14 feet. Drivers must ensure their vehicle's height is below this limit to avoid striking bridges and overpasses. On to the next question. In Texas, what is the rule regarding following distance for CMVs? Maintain a distance that allows you to safely stop. While not a specific measurement, the distance must be sufficient for the CMV's increased stopping distance. Moving forward, what is the specific Texas law regarding the display of the vehicle's inspection sticker? It must be clearly visible and currently valid. The sticker proves the vehicle meets state safety standards. Let's consider the next one. If a hazmat driver is required to take a specific route through Texas, the route information must be in the driver's possession and followed precisely. Mandated hazmat routes must be strictly adhered to for public safety. And the next point. What Texas law requires a CMV driver to turn off the engine when stopped at a railroad crossing? No specific Texas law requires all CMVs to turn off the engine, but passenger vehicles and certain hazmat carriers must stop. Engine shutoff is generally a safety best practice, but is not a universal legal mandate for all CMVs in Texas. What's next? Texas law requires that the vehicle's horn must be heard from a distance of 200 feet. The horn must be loud enough to effectively warn others of a hazard. Moving on to this. For intrastate, within Texas-only commerce, what is the maximum number of hours a CMV driver can drive after 8 consecutive hours off duty? 12 hours, Texas intrastate rule. This Texas-specific HOS rule is slightly different from the federal interstate 11-hour rule. All right, let's see. What is the primary safety concern when loading a cargo tank that has multiple compartments? Ensuring each compartment is weighed properly to balance the total load. Properly distributing the weight prevents uneven axle loading and maintains overall vehicle balance. That concludes our specialized and state-specific CDL knowledge review. You've covered some of the most advanced topics in commercial driving. Keep this information sharp, and you'll be ready for any challenge.